Hi guys, welcome back to my channel once again. Thank you so much for joining me again. Now this installment is actually part 6 of the Make It Happen Summit. Lily Wu, when I tell you it inspired me so much to made me realise the type of things that I was doing that I wasn't doing right, and basically, not focusing on things that I needed to focus on. Let me tell you, she's very inspirational, very entrepreneur minded, and very much youthful, knowledgeable, and just an all-round nice person, really. So I do hope you enjoy this installment of the Make It Happen Summit, and thanks for watching again, guys.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Make It Happen Summit. This is very special. By the way, I'm April. I'm one of the ambassadors of Future Female Singapore. And I'm here, I'm going to interview Lily Wu. So before I introduce our speaker for today, I would like to know which countries are you dialing from? Let us know in the chat box. Okay, let's see here. All right. Hello, Australia. Thank you for joining. Okay, I can see some South Africa. A lot of South Africa. Yes, thank you. Awesome. I can see a person from Zimbabwe. Wow, thanks. Singapore, yeah. Represent. I can see some people from London, Amsterdam, Cape Town, and Indonesia. Wow. Thank you. Full house today. All right. I think we can start. So I will introduce our speaker for today. Lily Wu is the head of programs at a lifelong learning school called New Campus in Singapore. Lily previously founded 2 7-figure businesses, both which started as a side hustle before making it full-time. She's a constant traveler. She traveled to a total of 17 countries now in the past year alone. And she is an entrepreneurial thinker and a free spirit. Aside from work, she has many interests and hobbies, including drawing, dancing, learning languages, and she's an avid reader. Once upon a time, she's also published 2 children's books with Scholastic and was on the Australian national team for a Japanese martial arts called Taido. So without further ado, I will introduce our speaker for today, Lily.
Hi everyone. Thank you for coming today. Thank you for introducing me, April.
Yes, thank you for sharing your story with us. So I'm very excited about this topic, on being resourceful, how to start from nothing, or at least without any resources. So I'm going to fire away. I'm going to ask you our first question. How did you start with your first business, and how did you start with no resources? I believe you were very young at that time, so please feel free to share your story with us.
Yeah, thank you. So I actually grew up in a very artistic family. My parents were both artists. I had no inkling and no desire to ever start a business. I actually wanted to be a graphic designer or study animation in Japan. After I graduated from high school. So at that time, I didn't know what anything to do with business, never even heard of the word entrepreneurship in my life. And it kind of just happened by chance. So as you know, like I said, my parents are both artists, and relying on commission is a very tough thing. And so when we were going through the global financial crisis, that period, it was really, really tough on them because no one is spending on art. And so we went through a really tough period, and my parents decided to go back to China for 3 months to just kind of figure out what they were going to do. And so at that time they gave me $100, and I thought it was so much money. I was like, oh my gosh, borrowed in cash. And then 2 weeks later I was like, crap, my parents are gonna kill me if they find out that I've already used up my $100. Like I had, as you can see, I had like no concept of money. I think my parents just assumed that, you know, when I would run out of the $100, I would just ask them for more and then they would send me more. But I honestly just thought that was it. I didn't want to ask them for more because I thought they would, you know, kill me. So I was just like, you know, living off my red pocket money that I'd made from when I was young. And I did what every 16-year-old would do in Australia, which is try and look for part-time work. And I literally went to everywhere, like McDonald's, KFC, like all the retail stores, just handing out my resume, talking to the manager, being like, hey, can you give me a job? For some reason, no one would hire me. And I was like, why don't they want to hire an underpaid, underage worker? You know, so that was happening on the side. And at that same time, during that time, I was really like, K-pop was just, you know, becoming really, really, you know, popular. And I really wanted these shoes, which are the Adidas Jeremy Scott wing shoes. And they retailed in Australia for $300. And if you ever look at like Australian fashion, we almost always get everything late. And we all often don't get any of the additional styles. We might get one style, but that's it. So I had just made this friend, and I had gone to this ballet competition in Italy a few years ago, and I'd met this girl, and her parents owned an Adidas outlet in LA. And if you know any of the outlets, like you buy Calvin Klein stuff, you buy all these other brands, and they often sell it for really cheap, especially if they're out of season. And Australia is always a season behind because we're literally, if it's our winter, it's America's summer, right? So we're always a season behind. And especially after the global financial crisis, the US dollar was really, really bad. So I was like, this is great. So I asked my friend, you know, how much are these shoes? Like, how much do they wholesale for? Do you want to guess how much it was? I'll leave it up to people in the chat to see how much you think it was. You see some $200. It's less than 100. Yeah, so it was actually $50 US, which actually was 40 Australian dollars at the time. That's how good the Australian dollar was. Not like now, but it was 40 Australian dollars. So I was like, oh my gosh, got such a deal. How much is it to ship a pair to Australia? And my friend was like, oh, well, Australia's kind of middle of nowhere. So the shipping for one pair would also be for $40. But if you can get an order of 20, then because it's basically by then a flat fee, then you can, then we won't charge you the shipping. So you need to get over an order of 20. So I was like, oh, this is great. You know, I'll ask my friends, right? I'll ask my friends if they want to get it with me. So I asked my friends at my high school, and I just straight up was just like, hey, these shoes are $40. If we manage to get 20 people, you know, we can get the shipping for free. And I was really surprised when my friends were like, there is no freaking way that this too good to be true. Like, it can't be this cheap. And I was like, no, but it's like wholesale price. You know, we're always a season behind. We have different styles in the US than in Australia. Like, the exchange rate is so good right now. And they're like, oh, I don't know, you know, it's too cheap. And I was like, that's really interesting that they think that it's too cheap. Like, the only problem is the pricing. So I went to a different group of friends and I said, hey, you know what? These shoes are $80. And I'm not lying anyway, because, you know, in case I don't get an order of 20, they are $80. Do you want to get them with me? And it was really interesting because this guy friend said to me, and he went to all boys kind of like private school. And it was at that moment I knew what my target market was, because he was like, actually, I do have a group of 20 who would want to, you know, get these shoes, but what do I get out of it? And so I was like, okay, you know, that's really interesting. So I told him, you know what, if you can get me an order of 20 by the end of next week, so a week and a half, then you can charge whatever you want to your friends as long as it's more than $80. So I will take a $40 cut, but you can charge whatever you want. So if you want to charge $250, then you can make, you know, a $170 cut. And it's still less than the retail price, which is $300, right? I could just see like my friends' mind just go ka-ching, just thinking how much he could make. And I was like, that's really interesting. His attitude was not like, oh, I'm scared that I'm gonna be charging more for my friend. He had a very business mindset already. He was like, you know, it's a win-win situation. My friend gets it for cheaper and I get to make money. What's not to like? So I was like, okay, I went to 9 other friends and I said the same thing. I said, if you can give me an order of 20 by the end of the week, then, you know, you can charge whatever you want as long as it's more than $80. So if you want to charge $250, $200, whatever, you go for it, but you just have to give me an order of 20. So my initial minimum viable product, right, was just one Word doc with the different colors of the shoes, and then one Excel spreadsheet, which was the name, like the name of the person, the size that they wanted to order, and the address. And then I had one Facebook page that I made, which is still somewhere floating around. It was called Crystals de Jolie. Okay, like if you're a French speaker, don't kill me. But it was basically a Google translated version of my name, Lily, and I had 2 best friends, which were Joy and Crystal at the time. And I called them Crystal Jelly because it was squished together and then translated into French. It's obviously not the best name. But I just made that Facebook page, and, you know, people, if anyone was interested, they could also, you know, go on the Facebook page and request an order. So that was it. That, like, I had no website, there was no establishing a business name, no establishing a company whatsoever. I had no idea what I was doing. I just sent those like one doc, one Excel spreadsheet, and then at the end of the week, they would send that back to me with the 20 people who wanted to enlist an order. And because I had no money, right, I couldn't pay for these shoes up front. I asked all of them if they made an order to give me a $40 bond, because they're not going to give me the whole amount, but they will give me $40, right? And I told them, you know, what if you cancel on me and I'm stuck with a size 43 silver pair of wing shoes that I can't sell to anyone else? So to make sure that, you know, you are committed to buying these shoes, you have to send me a bond first, right? And if you cancel on me, then, you know, you don't get the bond back, right? So at the end of the week, they gave me a $40 bond, and then when the shoes would come, they would give me the rest of the money. So I would take that money, give it to my friend's mom, and I literally would just ask, like, hey, can I borrow your credit card and buy these shoes? So by the end of the week, each of my 10 friends had given me 20 orders. And so in that 1.5 weeks, I had made, 20 times 10 times $40 profit, right? So I'd made $8,000 profit in 1 week, which is already a lot for me now, like 10 years later. Wish I could make $8,000 a week right now, right? But yeah, so that was really crazy. And what was crazier was that at least 5 people out of the 20 that my friends would sell to would then come up to me and be like, hey, you know what, I have friends, you know, as well, who would want to buy these shoes. Like, can I get in on this too? Because I know my friends made a lot of money. And that's kind of like how it started. It was very word of mouth. And it made sense for me because it was like so fast to do that, because I had 10 friends who literally gave me 200 orders because it was using their network. Right. So then, you know, eventually we built up a website and etc. And so by the end of 2 years, we expanded to different ranges and had different types of shoes as well. But at the end of 2 years, by the time I was 18 and I was doing my exams, I had made about $500,000, which I then invested into like property and stuff. But so many of my friends made so much more money as well because, you know, they had a bigger cut, and if they sold a lot more, then they would obviously make more money. But I think what this really told me was, you know, business is really just about problem solving. Like, you know, it was nothing super altruistic selling shoes, but you're solving your own problem. I wanted the shoes, and also it's the fact that business helps generate so much more value apart from yourself, because a lot of my friends were able to pay off their school fees, like purchase, you know, put down payments for investment properties. It like really helps start them up from a really young age. And, you know, literally there was like no resources. Like I was on negative actually, but with limitations really comes a way where you can be creative. And, you know, if I had no money, I wasn't thinking about, you know, making a business plan. I was literally like, you better pay me first, and then I can use this money and pay for the shoes. Otherwise, I don't have money to pay for this. And, you know, that's what we call attraction, right? Like making sure that people, you know, instead of sending out a survey, would you buy this? Would you buy this? The best way is to make sure that people will pay for you to solve their problems. And in this case, because people really wanted these shoes, they would pay at least a portion of it first, and validate that there is a need for this. So that was my first business. I ended up quitting it because honestly, like I had no interest in shoes. I literally just wanted to buy one pair. But it gave me the assurance that, you know, if I do want to make money, I can make money, and I can pick my opportunities like based on my values. Yeah.
Oh my God, Lily. That's a story. I'm sure everyone in the audience is mind blown. Like, I wish I would have thought of that when I was your age. You know, I mean, unexpectedly, you were employing people without, you know, you knowing it. You're giving opportunities to them, which
Yeah.
is amazing at that age. I love it. I love it. Everyone has to hear this story. I love it. Thank you for sharing that. So guys, if you have any comments for Lily, please feel free to put it in the chat. We'll be reading that. So, okay. First part of the story done. Was when you were very young. I would like to move on and ask you how you started your second business. So from that venture, I'm sure that you're pretty inspired. You're confident that you're able to do this and you're able to replicate. How did you start? Your second business. Can you please share it to us?
Yeah, I mean, neither of the two businesses that I started were intentional. Like, I never was like, I'm gonna start a business. And then the second one was also not like, I'm gonna start another business. Both were needs that I faced at the time. So after I graduated high school, I actually got a cadetship at a major accounting firm, which is in Australia like maybe they have it in the US too, but it's like a 4-year contract where they hire you straight out of high school. You do a kind of rotation of full-time work and part-time university over 4 years. And then you do part-time work, full-time study. So it like rotates every year. And I got in this cadetship where I was doing what they call enterprise advisory, which I thought was, advising people or talking to people. And I was like, you know what, accounting could be really useful since I'm interested in business now. Accounting is the basis of business. But honestly, I probably just wanted to see what it was like to work for a big company for fun. I don't know. I didn't know what I was expecting. I thought it'd be cool. So I joined this company and, first 6 months, it was really interesting experience because we did training. Like I would start in January and my university started in March. And I did this 2-month training where I was training with the graduate students. And I was like, why are we doing this training at the same time? It's like teaching us, how to balance debits and credits, like really, really basic stuff. And my manager at the time was literally like, it takes only an extra 60 hours to train up a high school student than a graduate student, but you know, we charged like my salary was like half of a graduate student. So I was like, why am I going to university for? Why am I majoring in accounting if I can just learn everything in the first, you know, 2 months at the job? So that was the first thing I thought that was really interesting. And then eventually, you know, I got the hang of it and I just absolutely hated it. Like, can you imagine me doing accounting now? I don't know, like the work was just not for me. Turns out enterprise advisory meant doing a lot of tax returns and a lot of financial statements, zero contact with actual clients. So that was kind of misleading. Had no idea what I was getting myself into. And I just did not like the environment at all as well. So after a year, I quit. And, you know, so many of my friends came up to me and were like, oh my gosh, you know, I'm so jealous. Like you're crazy to like quit this job because I would kill to be in your position right now. Like, don't you know how hard it is to get a internship during your penultimate or final year? Like, you're lucky you got this out of high school. And I was kind of like, yeah, you know what? I am really lucky. Like, I'm lucky to know what I never want to do again. And I was like, how sad would it be if I had gone through my entire 4-year degree thinking that the trajectory of my career is to just get into a big four accounting firm and to just like do accounting, or my other major was commercial law, like go to a legal firm or something, when it just didn't suit my personality, like the type of work that I was doing. So yeah, I was like kind of like, okay, I had this experience in my first year. Now I don't even know what I want to do anymore. And so initially I actually was like, okay, my parents are overseas. Everything happens when my parents are overseas. And I don't know why I keep projecting this on myself, but I always think that I'm going to get in trouble because maybe it's an Asian thing, can't escape it. So when I quit my accounting job, I was really scared to tell my parents. But honestly, looking back, I don't think my parents would have given a crap at all. But I just projected it. And I thought, you know, I need to find something to do before my parents come back to Australia again, right? And so initially, you know, it was the whole Asia and it was Australia in the Asian century. Like our prime minister at the time, Julia Gillard, had written this whole white paper. So I was like, okay, why don't I experience, you know, doing an internship in China? And so I didn't know how to get that position because my parents are both artists, so it's not like they could really help me in any way. So I went to an organization called ISEC, which is a really big organization around the world, and they do both volunteering and internship positions. And so initially I just went to ISEC and I said, hey, you know, I know you have placements all over Asia and everywhere for internships. During the interview, I was like, you know, do you have any placements in China that you can put me on? And that interview was really strange because they were like, yeah, we have placements in China, but do you want to teach English in Hungary? And I was like, what? So random. And I was like, maybe next time, but I want to do an internship in China. Like, do you have placements? And they kept saying, yes, we have placements. But are you sure you don't want to teach English in Hungary? And I was like, no. And so 2 weeks later, I get an email that said, you know, you have been rejected from this process. And I was like, okay, whatever, like, you know. And it was really funny because later on, I talked to the president of my chapter in a year later, and they actually wanted to partner with me to see if I had placements in China. And I asked him at the time, how many placements do you have in China? And he was like, none. And so I was like, oh my gosh, if he had just told me there was no placements in China and just told me pick another place, I would have just picked another place. I wouldn't have started my own business. I would have just gone somewhere else, right? But because they didn't tell me that there was no placements, I was just like, F that. You know, I'll find my own internship in China. And then I thought about it and I was like, you know what? I don't want to go by myself. I'm going to invite my friends to come with me. So I literally asked my primary school friends, my high school friends, my uni friends, if you're on this chat, thank you for coming and believing in me. But it's like 20 friends. Some of them are my best friends right now, and they helped me. Some of them helped me start up what was my second business. But at the time, I was just like, hey, you guys come to China with me. I'll organize your internship experiences for you. Just pay me $2,000. I just threw out like a random number. I was like, $2,000 sounds about right. Because it sounds like a lot for a university student when it's really not that much. I was like, give me $2,000. I'll organize your internship placements. I'll organize your accommodation, food, activities, whatever. And they were like, okay, cool. Yeah, let's do it. Let's go to China together as a group. And then I was like, crap, I don't know how I'm going to organize these placements because they're all studying really random stuff. Like some people are studying like aeronautic engineering, some are studying like law, some are studying business, some are all random stuff. And it's not like one type of degree either. So I was like, what is something that is publicly available? Like, how can I think outside the box? And so something that could easily be scraped, obviously, and publicly available are university emails. You know, if you ever look up, you know, a dean, or if you look up someone, they always have their information on the website. So I basically scraped like 400 different emails from different universities of the deans of international education, because I knew that their KPI was to get more international students to come to their university. So I would email like all these different universities in China. I didn't care what they were. I just emailed them in my shitty Chinese. I was like, hey, we have 20 Australian students. We love your university. Like, you know, I'll pay you a lump sum if we can come for the summer break, which is their winter, but summer break. But these are all their profiles. Can you please organize internships for them? Because I knew that universities hold the relationships and the connections with the businesses within the city. So that was like the easiest way that I could get to do that. Otherwise, you know, I'm not hitting up every single different company, right? So then I think I only got like maybe 4 or 5 responses out of the 400. Really knew how to deal with rejection from that. But I ended up only with one actual university that went through with it. And it was this university called Liaoning Daxue, which is Liaoning University in a city called Shenyang. And at the time I was like, where is Shenyang? I've never heard of this city before. And I look on Wikipedia, like I look on Google Maps, and turns out the city is like right next to North Korea. And I was like, okay. And so I Wikipedia this city, and I was like, hey friends, like, do you guys want to come with me to Shenyang? It's you know, used to be the capital city of China, has an imperial palace, is the biggest city in the northeast region, right next to Russia. So, you know, we can go to Harbin where they have like the really amazing like lights and see it during the winter, can do so many amazing things, go skiing. And most of all, you're going to have to, you get to practice Chinese and fully immerse yourself, because, you know, it's not like Shanghai where they speak English to you. You're going to learn Chinese learn Mandarin during this time. And, you know, Liaoning University, top 10 business school. I think it was like a 3rd tier uni, but their business school was okay. So I just said their business school. Never mind the fact that, you know, half of them didn't even study business, but made us seem better than it is. And to be honest, my friends were like, yeah, let's go. Very Aussie. Yeah, like, cool. You know, let's have fun. So we ended up going to Shenyang. Had a lot of fun. The university ended up organizing these internship placements, but it wasn't like anyone really did any work. And so the university then asked me, hey, can you bring back more students? Like, we love your students, can you bring more back? And I was like, oh yeah. And she was like, what's your business name? And I was like, business name. And then me and my friend, literally in like 2 minutes, I was like, we should call it Austern because it's Australian interns squished together. And I seem to have this tendency to squish names together. And my friend was like, do you want to think about this? Like, you want to think of a better name? And I was like, nah, who cares? It's just a name. And that's how it stuck. A funny story was that a few years later, I was looking on Google Trends and I was like, looking up Austern, and I saw this spike in Germany. And I thought, oh my gosh, you know, so many German students are interested in coming on our program. And then I look at Google Images and turns out that Austern actually means oyster in German. So from then onwards, what Austern meant was not Australian intern, because eventually we actually didn't do internships anymore. What it meant was the world is your oyster, so that the more opportunities that you take, the more likely you'll be able to find your pearl. Yeah, so that's what it meant after. Complete bullshit, but you know, it was better than Australian intern. So that's how we started, like completely like no resource, unconventional. And a lot of people sometimes ask, you know, because what Austern became was completely different to this story that I just told. Like, sounds really, really scrappy. And in the beginning, you know, people are like, you were so young, I was 19, you know, how did you convince people that, you know, you should lead these programs? And the truth is that in the beginning, I just leveraged Liaoning University's name. Not that they really had a name. I just was like, you know, this is Liaoning University's program, and I would leverage their name and say, we are the ambassadors to bring Australian students to China to learn about Chinese culture, learn the language, and that would be an advantage to, you know, Australian businesses who want to operate in Asia later and also deal with Chinese clients. So that was kind of the angle we went towards. But throughout the 5 years that I ran Austern, you know, by the second year, I found my co-founder, Jamie, and she was working on it full time as well. And the first thing I wanted to do was get out of China, to get out of Shenyang. Just the business culture and the language barriers and the culture barriers were just like, was a lot of work. So we expanded to Singapore. We ended up, over the 5 years, expanded to Singapore, Hong Kong, Sydney, Melbourne, Shanghai, New York. And what it ended up being like was that we discovered that internships really don't provide a lot of value, especially it was exacerbated in China because one, they don't give a crap about the students because they're doing it as a favor for the university. But the second is that, you know, it really depends on the company to provide value for the students. So if the company doesn't want to, you know, put in effort to provide value for students, there's nothing that I could do to make the experience better. And that's why they were going on the program to begin with, to get that experience, right? So I was like, how can I control this experience so that it doesn't matter what company you end up at, you will be able to learn, you know, transferable skills. So eventually the program ended up being 3-week career boot camps where we would partner with 2 different companies. So it would be one corporate like Philips, Oracle, that's who we partnered with as well. And then, or a startup as well, which would be like Carousel or like, you know, Uber when they launched Uber Eats. So that people could see what it was like to work in 2 different environments, which is what I would have wanted. You know, I thought that was really valuable for me going into an accounting firm, realizing that's not what I want. And it's a condensed way for people to experience, do I value, you know, a highly structured environment, or do I value a startup autonomous kind of environment? So that was the first thing. The second thing was that they would, within the 3 weeks, they would do 2 challenges where it was the company would give a problem that they're facing, and then within 1 week they would not only have to, you know, interview people, like come up with a problem statement, ideate. So we would teach them design sprint so that the students could learn to actually execute something. Because I realized at university, people always, you know, can say a lot of ideas, but they have no experience in execution and testing their assumptions, right? So we did that as well. And then at the end of the week, they had to pitch back to the executives of the company. And oftentimes the company would then hire the entire team to roll out the solution. So for example, for Carousel, when we partnered with them in 2016, they were only a very, very small company. They were still at NUS, Block 71. And actually, our students were the ones who helped expand Carousel into Australia. So my business partner ended up being the country manager for Australia for Carousel, right? So that came out of the 1 week sprint. And for Uber, they were launching Uber Eats in Sydney, and so the students had to learn SQL on the first day. And then they wanted the students to come up with a viral marketing campaign, and the winning team would then roll their solution nationwide. So then they went from, learning SQL on the first day, using the data to identify popular places that people would go to, coming up with, themes, whether that's brunch places or date places or whatever. And then they have to film the actual thing, come up with the marketing strategy and test something out. So they're given a small budget to do that, and then pitched it back to the executives at Uber, Australia, New Zealand. And then that whole team ended up being hired by Uber. So that was really, really crazy. But it goes to show that, they were learning a lot of different transferable skills that were really important, whether that was project management or teamwork or communication, and being able to actually test out and execute something. So yeah, it ended up being very, very different from the first program that I ran. And I think, a lot of times people think that their product has to be really perfect from the beginning, and they're not happy to start until it's perfect. But honestly, you just got to start somewhere and iterate, and it will end up completely different. And every time we would just get our student feedback, and it would change every single time. Yeah.
Wow, Lily, there's a lot of golden nuggets in your story. I mean, at a very young age, you were a very good sales person and also a marketer, because I like the way that you, get the place, the name of the university, and you pick the positive points and then squish it together, put it together and package it in such a way that, it's enticing to people. So I think that's brilliant. You get to have people on board and, business along the way, and the business evolves. So it's, yeah, you're right. It's all about solving a problem, really identifying that problem and solving it. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. You have to keep on iterating, so long as you're solving a solution, or giving a solution to the problem, and also giving value to people, and in turn it's a good business. That's amazing.
Yeah,
Lily.
we ended up being actually making it legit, having in the beginning, people were like, how did you get companies on board? We would literally leverage whatever company we had before and just try to get a better one for the next one, get a better one for the next one, leapfrog, company names like that. And once you get a good enough company, then you can use that as the example. But obviously, none of the companies we had were super, super awesome to begin with. And you got to leverage whatever advantage that you have, right? Like I said, we leveraged the university name. We didn't say this was our own program in the beginning because we had no advantage. We had no credibility in that area. But by the end, we were course accredited at 6 different universities. So people could literally have their course, funded by the government to come on the program. We had 1,000 students. It was generating 7 figures in revenue. But that all comes, gradually. It wasn't like that in the beginning. I went 2 years unpaid. So
Yeah. I mean, I can just imagine how your life was during that time. So I think this is a good lesson for all, the perfectionists out there. You may be, watching this right now. I think the secret is to really keep the momentum going. Just start. Just start. Don't think too much, right? Just start, and whatever it is, it's going to show you if it's viable. If it's a business that's viable, it's just going to show itself in that sense. Amazing story, Lily.
Yeah, especially no resources to begin with.
Yeah, exactly. So now I want to move on to the next part of your journey. So obviously, like creating these two amazing businesses, which has a very good success out of nothing. I'm sure you wanted to have like a new challenge.
Yeah, exactly.
You wanted to have a new challenge. And we know that you moved from Australia to Singapore, and you have a totally new job when you arrived in Singapore. How did you do that? How can you share us how you did that? Because you basically started again from nothing, like no connections, a totally different job, zero, um, everything. So can you share with us how you did it?
Yeah, I think so I joined New Campus when it wasn't called New Campus. It was called QLC, which at the time was a different company with a different name. And then my plan for 2019, when I joined August 2018, but my plan for 2019 was that I was going to spend the entire year working remotely and then traveling to 4 different countries to learn 4 languages. I just wanted that time to learn languages, do like my own projects, and then also work at the same time. So then I was planning to do 3 months in Korea, 3 months in Japan, 3 months in France studying French, and then 3 months in South America studying Spanish. And then the first day of the new year, like 2 days before I was going to Korea, I was in Hawaii at this point, and my boss was like, called me and said, hey, we're planning to rebrand completely, and we're planning to launch a new business model. So do you want to come to Singapore next week and help launch New Campus and, kind of operationalize this kind of lifelong learning school in Singapore? And I was like, I will come, but I already booked a whole month in Korea. So I'm going to go to Korea first for that 1 month that I booked, and then I'll come in February. So we end up doing that. I was in Korea for a month studying Korean at Seoul National University and then working. And then I arrived in Singapore end of January, and we wanted to launch the new brand with a major event like the 3 weeks later, like 21st of February. I think that was the date, but it was like in 3 weeks. And so obviously, like, I didn't have a lot of time. So before I came, I just added everyone on LinkedIn. I just called LinkedIn everyone. I was like, hey, I'm just moving to this place. Like, let's catch up for coffee. And one of the guys who I messaged 2 years ago, but we never met up. And it was this guy called Eric, and he is a LinkedIn influencer. He has 2 million followers. He used to be a managing director at a major bank. And so he luckily was like, yeah, let's meet up, because we've already been saying we're going to meet up for like 2 years now. So we met up and, like we talked. And then I also was like, hey, do you want to come as one of our keynote speakers for this event that I'm hosting? And he was like, okay, yeah, sure. And so from then onwards, I would once again leverage what I had, right? Which was this one keynote speaker that I had, and ask other speakers, hey, Eric's gonna be there. So do you wanna come and speak about these different topics? Or do you wanna come as a mentor or do the breakout session? So in the end, it was a one-man show for that first event, where it was like me finding the speakers, marketing the event, trying to find people to come, partnering with WeWork to launch the event at Suntec. And then, after that, luckily my team helped me run other events as well. But yeah, that first event was like my project to launch it into the new city. And so it was a good thing we had ended up with 200 people who came to the event 3 weeks later. But it was like so stressful because it was a physical event. We had to like order all these like banners that our designer designed like into Singapore, and tried to get it ready for the day. Yeah, and I'd never done a big scale event before. So that was interesting. And I had like barely landed in the city myself. Yeah.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh. Like really from zero. The amount of trust that, you know, the people around you put in you is like, okay, this is pressure, but you rise against the pressure. It's just really amazing. I can just imagine, you know, having to launch a product, a service in a country that you don't know, you don't have any contacts, and you move very quickly. I'm wondering if you were even sleeping. Not so much sleep, I can imagine. Yeah, but that's amazing. So from that point on, so you're leading the programs, new campus. You're now you know, still doing the programs, looking for the speakers. Now I want to move on and connect it with the current context of what's happening right now, right? So relating it to the current situation, you know, the pandemic brought about a lot of challenges, and some people who may be watching right now may have been retrenched or resigned from their jobs. What do you recommend that they do? You know, whether they want to start a business, you know, on the side. What do you recommend?
Yeah, I think you know, as my two kind of experiences have kind of shown, it really, a lot of people think that, you know, starting a business means having to raise capital from a VC. It means having to spend $30,000, you know, buying all this stock and building a really like beautiful website, or like buying all this infrastructure, or like, you know, getting all these CRM systems. But they're all things that are very, the things that will come later on and are not necessary for you to start a business. And often people think of this like what the future 10 years later is going to be of my business, and it's going to be perfect. But you got to just start somewhere, and you got to start with as much of a limited constraint as possible. How little money can you actually spend to make this into reality? So a small side hustle business could literally be from, you know, I see people on Instagram learning how to sew, you know, masks, and then just, you know, putting it out there. Hey, if I sell this for $10, anyone want to buy it? And then if people pay them, then they can just start making masks straight away and make a brand. And eventually it can become something bigger. Or like I know some other people who have started, you know, baking a lot or like cooking a lot. So then they start, you know, selling their cookies or like selling their goods, and have become really successful because of that. But it doesn't take, like, all they have to do is, you know, make sure the recipe is good, and then put it out there, see if anyone would want to buy it. And if people put in orders, then you can figure out how to make 100 different batches of cookies, right? Like they don't have to make the cookies first before, you know, selling them, right? So it's just understanding that it can be really, really simple to begin with. And it can be what's the minimum viable product that you can build in order to start something on the side.
Yeah, so I think as entrepreneurs, they have to really use the creativity instead of letting go of the initial funds that they have, because the funds are gonna run out. Let's face it, right? But your creativity, you know, the more that you use it, the more that it's going to flourish. I would say, and it's a practice. So that's a very good tip. Thank you so much, Lily.
Yeah.
So yeah, we are running out of time, and thank you everyone for watching. So please feel free to connect to Lily. Lily, how can they find you?
Yeah, you can connect on LinkedIn. It's Lily Wu on LinkedIn, on Instagram. I also have some art pages on Instagram if you want to follow. it's at the Traveling Sketchbook and Lily's Daily Doodles.
Yes, you will see Lily's creativity in these different pages. So it seems that, you know, on top of the things that you're doing, you still find time to your passion. I mean, for your passion, you know, being creative. It's your first love after all. So which is really good. Okay, so everyone, thank you so much for watching, tuning in, and we'll see you on the next. Bye. Thanks,
Bye.
Lily. Bye.